time.
Well, another question from Reddit, speaking of aliens. I would be curious to hear David's views on conspiracies and conspiracy theories, the extent to which real conspiracies happen, and why conspiracies that have little evidence behind them manage to be so compelling to people regardless. Also, please bring up aliens and UAPs.
Okay. Where do we start?
The conspiracy, what? What are in general, as a person who thinks about politics, uh, thinks about this world, like where do conspiracy theories fit in for you?
I think there have been conspiracies, and by conspiracies, I'm using a colloquial definition, which is basically individuals working together to, in a clandestine way, impact or affect some kind of event or phenomenon, very, very broadly. I mean, certainly that those things have happened. To jump around to some of the things that were in there, I think the reason that conspiracy theories are so compelling is that it's really tough for a lot of people to accept there are random events, not predictable specifically. At a stochastic level, we might be able to predict them, but specifically unpredictable, bad events in many ways. I could be the victim of one, or you could, or my family could. That's really scary to a lot of people, understandably so. And for some people, it's less scary and more soothing in a way to say, there aren't really random events like this. Somebody planned it. And if we had just known who planned it, it just could have been stopped because we would have known exactly when. That's just at a psychological level easier to accept for people. And I get that to some degree. Because, listen, it's not the most exciting thing that everything can just be going fine and something absolutely horrible happens and kills, who knows, some number of people. So I think that's the biggest attractor to a lot of these conspiracy theories. It doesn't apply to all of them, though.
But there's still kind of a basic understanding of human nature where some people are greedy and want power and are corrupted by power. So there's kind of these compelling narratives that stick. That I don't know. The vaccine is a opportunity for a powerful billionaire to implant chips into you so he can control you further.
Right.
It doesn't seem. What do I want to say? It's like for some reason that doesn't seem as crazy as it should. Because you think like maybe Hollywood contributes to that. But you think, yeah, you could imagine an evil person, a person that wants more control, more power, and is also at the same time able to convince themselves, as history shows, that they actually have the best interest of the populace in mind, that they're trying to do good for the world. So they do evil while trying to do good. And you can kind of imagine it. So it's like, why not? And you listen to people in power, authorities, they kind of look and sound shady, like
Yeah.
the transparency, especially the older ones. I think younger folks are better at being like real and transparent and just like revealing their flaws and the basic humanity. But people that are a little bit older in the positions of power, they're more polished. They're more like it feels like they're presenting a narrative where the truth is hidden in the shadows. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with suspecting maybe a public figure isn't giving me the full story.
Yeah.
Totally reasonable thing to question. I don't think there's anything wrong with exploring a lot of these different things. I think the problem becomes, and I know you've talked about this in so many different ways with other guests, the problem becomes when we lose a shared understanding of how we would assess whether any of these things are true. And then both alleged evidence and an absence of evidence both become supportive of the conspiracy theory. Because if there's bad evidence, you manipulate it and say it's good evidence. If there's no evidence, you say the evidence was obviously hidden by the people who carried out the thing or whatever. So unless we can have a shared understanding of how we would determine what's true, these are common conversations often between atheists and religious folks. How can we like, is my faith in something or my desire for something to be true a good way to evaluate whether it is true? They're really similar questions.
Well, let me ask you about Trump on that front, about the election, 2020 election, and maybe the better question is about January 6th. Do you think January 6th was a big deal?
I do.
How big of a deal?
Compared to what?
Civil War.
I think it was less of a big deal than the Civil War.
Okay.
No, I mean, so it's a very interesting thing though, right? Because we have not only the event. That's clever, actually. It's not only the event, but it's what led up to it and what has happened since, and did it change what is considered on the table that citizens can, should, or might do if they disagree with the results of an election. So I think that there are further reaching consequences than just was the 6-hour period on January 6th a bigger or smaller deal than the Civil War. And there's so much wrapped up into it. Many conspiracy theories flowed from January 6th as well. 60 Minutes recently featured a guy named Ray Epps, who was targeted by some on the right, claiming that he was an instigator or an agent of the FBI or something along those lines. There were people claiming that it was like a no true Scotsman sort of thing. Like Trump supporters wouldn't riot, so by definition, it must have been Antifa. Police let him in, or police were, all these different things. I think it was a big deal in a lot of ways because it completely made us have to go back to the top to say, okay, what are the parameters of valid discussion and activism in the United States?